Okay, so this is Oreo day 2, and we handed out the Oreos beforehand, so we shouldn't have like 15 sound bites like we did in the Carl 1 lesson. But so hashtag so what? I'm gonna throw that out there to start with. But respect to my illustrious opponent because he played so clean in this game. And I'm gonna be honest, like I had a couple different people message me after they saw me playing in the Pro League games, and they were like, "Hey Ryan, why didn't you play the Kings Indian against So?" Like, cause I'm not dumb. I'm gonna be honest, like there was a game a couple years ago where So got hardcore roasted by Nakamura because Nakamura thrashed him in a Kings Indian, and then he went on social media. No, it was actually in the interview, and it was put all over social media. He said something to the effect of, like, when they asked him about So, he was like, well, he can't play openings. So then, after that, you can look at So's stats against the Kings Indian, and it's been more than stellar. Like, he wins, like, more than 80% of his games against the Kings Indian. And I couldn't find a line after researching that I was like, okay, yeah, I could comfortably go into this with him. I would just get mauled, and I knew that. So I decided to go with a solid option. And lo and behold, So has this nice anti-line that goes against what I recommend to you guys to play for my Queen's Gambit players that exchange Knight H5 variation. The move order that he uses is targeted specifically against that variation. And I had never seen it before until I was going through his games, and I was like, well, that's pretty nifty. And then I started looking in the database, and I was like, okay, I can play this. The line makes sense, and I'll explain the ideas as we're going through today. And we'll get a key moment in the game where I had my oh crap moment. So, let's get started. All right, so he went with 1c4, and I'm like, I had in mind that I wanted to play the Queen's Gambit against him. So's one of those players, when you're looking in the database, he plays e4 like 1 in 3 games. And Knight f3 and d4 make up the other two. So I knew if he played Knight f3 or d4, I wanted one response to get the same position either way. So I was prepared for him to play the Catalan against me, as well as the exchange variation, and his most prominent variation is the Bishop f4 variation in the Queen's Gambit. I had lines prepared and everything. So after Knight c3, d5, d4, here you can, if you don't like the exchange variation like I got in the game, you can look into playing Bishop e7 here, and this does away with the exchange. It's just a solid recommendation. But I don't mind playing the black side of the exchange because it was something that I understood. And for my Queen's Gambit players in the room, what's the most accurate move order here? Yeah, Knight bd7 is the best move order because you look at this, and if this is a puzzle rush problem, they're like, tasty pawn. But then after bishop takes queen, check, you can only block with your queen, and congratulations, you played yourself. So every Queen's Gambit player, whether you're playing white or black, should be aware of that trap. So of course, he's not going to fall into that. But I had to try. And I thought for a second here, I was like, Knight bd7. All right. Instructive moments. Most people don't care because they know their opponent's not going to fall into it, but it matters. You always set up opportunities for your opponent to lose. He plays e3, c6, and normally, like in your notes, you got queen c2. And then I recommend Knight h5, takes, and then there's a few different lines white can play, but generally the plan is to play g6, Knight g7, Knight b6, and try to trade off your bad bishop for his good one. And that's the general understanding of this position. Well, So had a very interesting move here, which isn't too popular. He played h3, and it completely stops this Knight h5 line. So now, let's talk to my Queen's Gambit players in the room because I 1000% know this is not in your notes. What would you do here with black? for the people watching on YouTube. That silence is pretend thinking. Castles, and you'll never be able to get similar positions like's in your notes. Because he can swap gears after castles and even play something like G4. That doesn't seem fun. H3 is an extremely flexible move. You can either play like he did in the game, solid, or play castles queenside and play super aggressive. Bishop B4. If I wanted my bishop on B4, I would have put him there to start with. Doesn't go along with the position, waste of tempo, and pins your knight.
Maybe H6 just to see what he does next.
But I still can't go with my G6 plan. So the reason I asked you guys is because I didn't know the plan here either. I'd seen something similar years ago, but I'd forgotten about it because I don't play these positions too often with black. But I was like, okay. When I was actually looking at his chess.com games, and he had a few blitz games from this position, and I knew it was a possibility. And when I got it over the board, I'm like, I'm still in prep. All right. I play knight f8. And the idea is the knight's going to do a hop around. Instead of knight h5, the other knight's going to do the job. Knight f3, knight e6, tickle tickle, runs away. G6, and you see it's the same type of plan as with knight h5, it's just with the opposite knight. Okay, so when he castled, that surprised me because in the past he had played queen c2, castle queenside, and he got nasty. And I actually had a novelty prepared in the position against the queen c2, castle queenside stuff. Basically, my idea was I'm going to push my a pawn a whole lot, and I'm going to make you do something. Hey, one does what one can. But when he castled kingside, I'm like, yeah, there's only like 8 games in the database with this. Maybe a few more. I'm exaggerating. But I'm like, he's going to do... Okay, let me back up some. In the past, there's really 2 ways to play this type of position if you exclude the castle queenside lines. You got the Kasparov way to play the exchange, where you play for f3 and e4 at some point, slamming the center. And that's what I teach most of you guys, because statistically it scores better and it's easier to play. Technical players like So play what I deem as the Karpov variation, which we're going to see in this game. He's going to employ a typical minority attack, and that's when 2 pawns are going to attack and break up the 4. And the way that he does it, it's like flawless execution to get what you want. He wants to trade off these 2 pawns for these 2, leaving this guy extremely weak, and it has to be defended for the rest of the game. That's the future. Okay? So I know what the plan is. I know what white's going to do as soon as I see him castle kingside, because he's not going to play for e4 here. So I know I should probably be stopping this. But first, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to complete development. And when he plays b4, I was like, because this had never been played before in a game. Now, I'm out of my prep. He's still in his, and this was my, oh God, moment. Like, this is going to end up being in somebody's book. Like, that is the worst feeling in the world when you're like, your opponent's about to run a clinic on how to play this opening on one side of the board, and you're just a punching bag. So I did the best I could to make it a game from this point, but his technique is like frickin' flawless. So first of all, let's see. Let's pick someone tactically inept. How about bend the butthole? What happens if bishop takes b4, Ben? Because I know you wanted it. Yeah, you did. Don't lie. Go ahead, bend the butthole. You got this. Bishop takes b4, then what? What's the most forcing move for white? That is the worst sneeze ever. Bless you. Oh my God. It was somewhere between like a vacuum cleaner when you're cleaning it out and some kind of giraffe or something. Do better. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ben. If bishop takes b4, Knight takes d5 is devastating. Because if knight takes, you lose your queen, and if queen takes, queen a4 check, and the best the computer could give was king f8, and then queen takes b4. Ooh, it's dirty. And when he played b4, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should have played like a5 or something beforehand to try to slow it down. But no, he hit me with b4, and I'm just like shaking my head because it was like an insta move too. And it took me a second. I spent like 30 seconds being like, maybe he blundered. Nah, he doesn't blunder. So then I go a6. Oh yeah, I gotta show it to you. I'll show it to you. That's just not fun at all. So I go a6 to slow him down. He's like, no, I insist. This is gonna happen. And what you want in a lot of these variations is if this knight happened to still be here, there are some plans where you can play b5 and knight b6 and then sink a knight on c4. But since my knight's over here, like, I don't have this plan, so I'm like out of my normal like ideas. So I'm like, when in doubt, do something. Development. And according to the computer, I'm still okay here, but it don't know. So does. So, boom. Here comes a minority attack plan, just like we talked about. The 2 is going to break up the 4. It's going to create weaknesses. And you have to be careful, too, in how you trade them. There's a lot of different ways that this can go. You can be left with a weak D pawn that's going to die. You can be left with a weak C pawn that's going to die. Or you can just lose pawns for no reason. It's your choice. If I play b5 here, he can even go with a5, lock it up, and then go knight d2 to b3 to c5 and do that type of plan in the long term. Like, positionally, this is easy to play, or knight e5 and hit the c6 pawn that's very weak, which is a typical good plan as well after b5. So I'm like the line that the computer gave is best. I'll go with that first. Castles, and after b5, takes, rook a3, activity. Makes sense that the computer would find something active and something where I couldn't even see anything active. Bishop takes, knight takes, rook b3, queen a5, and the computer was like, you're not dead here, but I don't like you. And one of the key features of this bishop being here is hopefully at some point you can dream of playing c5. Dream. That's all. So I played knight e4. I'm like, let's mix this thing up. When in doubt, go into complications, because he's definitely not going to be able to solve them better than I can. Oh, God. And he spent about 2 minutes here, and I'm like, got him thinking. You got to have moral victories in this thing. And when he grabbed there, I'm like, I better surprise him. Because if we just trade a bunch, it's going to be a pawn structure that I'm not a big fan of. So I'm going to take here and make sure I'm going to waste time later, but at least I'm keeping the pawn structure the same and I understand it. Because I knew this would happen, and I thought that my position would be better than it was at this point. I thought I would potentially be able to get in c5, sacking the pawn, and just, like, do something. Queen c2. And here is where I really went wrong, because I know that the c-pawn is going to be weak. And, well, castles is fine. Knight a4. Now, I'll give you this position. Do you want to... okay, let's ask somebody who tried to play c5 like 6 times yesterday. Do you want to play c takes b5?
No.
Why?
Because it brings his rook down and then it just pushes me back further.
There's multiple reasons why c takes b5 is bad. If you play c takes b5, you break your pawn chain, leaving 2 weak pawns. You're lifting his rook, making it easy for his other rook to come into play, and you created multiple targets. Basically, that's a de facto resign if you take on b5. So what I would love is to somehow get in knight d6 to c4, and I could fix all my problems. Notice how he never gives me an opportunity to do this. I played rook c8. This rook is on an open file. It should not be taken off the open file. This is one of my first minor inaccuracies that starts costing me the game. Queen c7 is actually the best move according to the engine. And after rook fc1, I didn't even consider this because I'm like, yeah, I won't pin my queen. That seemed good. No, I don't think that way. Now rook a5, which only engines find these types of moves. Takes, and the idea is if queen takes, you got bishop takes d4, and everything's tactically justified, and this will work out to be a draw. Yeah, right? Like, the computer finds this, like, rook a5 move. It's just like, humans, we're like, in comparison. What he would do, though, instead of taking there, he'd probably play knight b2, and then after this, he's just eventually going to just keep piling. You see how good the knights are in this position. It just shuts down all play. While my good bishop isn't so good. It's an interesting concept. Now that was best play, and still white's better. So what did I do? Rook c8, takes. And now, after rook fc1, here's your last opportunity to play a decent move and have a chance to hold. If you do what I did in the game, what happened to me is what would happen to you. So, what move would you play? Let's not all try at once. I like how Jackson, who plays the Queen's Gambit, hasn't had anything to say. Slay.
97.
Yeah, that's what I played and I lost, Ben. Good job. All right, so first of all, why can't you play knight d6? That's a good starting point because I want to play knight d6 and then knight c4. What happens after knight d6? Because when I had this position in my mind's eye, like a move or two before,
You can play knight b6 and then
rook c7.
and then you can take
Yeah.
d5.
If knight d6, knight b6, rook c7, knight takes d5, and the pawn's pinned, you just lose. So yeah, I could not see any other idea other than knight d6 or knight e7 here. I was blind to the best idea, which the computer, when you see it, huh? Nah, queen c7 is just as bad. He plays rook b6, and now he has every single one of his pieces piling on the c6 pawn. Bishop e7, what does that do? Yeah, I don't know either.
What is it?
Okay, what is black's worst piece?
Is F rook.
F rook.
Yeah.
So the best move is rook e8 with the idea of lifting the rook. And now if you play knight e7, you're just like, you're hunkering down, but all of your pieces are in the defense. And if there's a rule, if you only got one weakness, you should be able to hold the position. It's principle of two weaknesses, not one. So if I would have found this, you know, you can just kind of dance the dance with him for a while. But he's going to keep, you know, dancing until he gets the position. I get low on time and he beats me. This is what these guys are good at. They grind. So I missed that. And after takes, I was like, I better defend that pawn the worst way possible. Oh, second, knight d6. So me and Ben the Butthole are on the same page about knight e7. Knight c5. I'm like, ooh, activity with a king, baby. Gotta have it, because what's my plan? What am I supposed to be doing? Wait for the punishment. He gets the rook down there. I'm like, okay. Now my knight can't move because he has knight e6. So rook c7. Okay, getting something done. He's like, nah, that's my file. My file. I'm like, you right? That's your file. No offense. And I'm like, maybe I can check him. Moral victory. Now g4, threatening g5, getting a loof for the king that's better than before. Nice move. First choice by the computer, by the way. Pretty much every move that he's played since b4 is the first choice of the computer. I'm just throwing that out there. He's ridiculous. And most of the time when you say something like that about your opponent, you're like, stupid bot. But when it's so, you're like, magnificent! Nah, he's just awesome. H6, can't allow G5. And I thought H4 was going to come, but you know what? He didn't want to weaken around his king because I may have some chances. So he just plays Queen B2. He's just turning that torture rack tighter. The squeeze is getting bad. And by this point, I want to say he had like 10 minutes and I've got like a minute and a half, maybe. It's not fun playing against these guys because I'm like trying as hard as I can just to make this game instructive, so when I'm showing you guys, you see how to play white in such a clinical way. It's just disgusting. So Queen C8, I can't move my rook. I don't know. Queen B6, and I'm like, all right, now I can move. There's no knight E6 check anymore. So he goes knight D7. I'm like, please take my bishop. You want to trade queens? You want to give me a shot? Give me a shot. And he's like, all right, I'm going to take there. And, all right, let me ask you guys, what do you think the evaluation of this position is?
+2.
Plus 5.
Plus 5.
I mean, this looks like a position that, you know, it looks relatively holdable. But no, it's like +3. It's like a minor piece up, even though it's equal material. And he had a faster win, and it was only his only blemish on the game. But at that point, when you see a win, it doesn't matter. He goes Queen A7. I can't move my knight still. And again, like when we talked about Karpov and his style of play, like that boa constrictor style of play, they tie you up. You can't do anything, and your position gets worse and worse until you lash out, and then they break you. The game's done. Queen D6. Knight E5, Queen E6, and I'm dreaming of potentially playing H5 and getting counterplay. Now after Rook D7, I've got the better part of 30 seconds here, and I see what's coming, but I see absolutely no way to defend it. I can't move my knight on E7 because Rook takes F7 just doesn't seem like a pleasant way to end this game. I can't move my queen anywhere. If I move my rook, I don't see how that's going to be helpful. So I play King G7. And now when he goes Queen C5, Rook D6 is threatened, and I literally have no moves whatsoever. The squeeze is real. So I play H5. I'm like, ah! I'm going to get you. And then when he goes Rook D6, run away! And now my queen's locked out of the defense of the knight. I can't exactly move the knight because that doesn't look fun. I'm like, I'm going to get a pawn! I got like 10 seconds left at this point. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. takes. And I'm like, oh crap, I can't even take on H3. So then I play Queen F5, and I'm like, maybe he'll trade down and just make fun of me in a king and pawn endgame. Well, he'll beat me there too. And so he takes back. I'm like, yes, moral victory check. And then when he goes King H2, I'm like, there's definitely no more checks. It's like mate and 8 in the position. So I resign. It was intentional in this video. I wanted to see how many times I could say so in the video.
So what?
So somebody in the comments give me a counter. It'll probably be somebody like Darcy who was like, if be doing that the whole time, it'd be good. But all respect to my opponent because that was an extremely clean game. Very, very instructive. I don't mind showing you guys a game like that. The next one that we're going to look at, though, yeah, you can look up that one in chess.com. That one was embarrassing. I'll say I just hung a piece versus Ramirez in the opening, and then, as he should, he just beat me like I was nothing in the position. This is why you don't play openings you don't know. Like I hung a pawn on E4 in a Sicilian. That tells you how bad it was. You freaking start with E4. Stupid. Oh my god. So the next video you're going to see, because that game was like a 20 mover. You know what? Let's do it. I'll just show you real quick. So here goes my game with Ramirez, and you can see it from the black side. So I get to this position, which I wanted in my notes, and then right here, I decide to... I thought about the best move in the position too, which is stupid. I'm like, okay, I think I need to play knight takes c6 here to stop tactics, and then start with the kingside play. Like, if knight takes c6, bishop takes c6, I'll just play f3, and it's a game. But I decided to play h4 here, and this loses on the spot because of knight takes e4. And I'm like, yeah, as soon as I played h4, I was like, ugh! And then it just gets worse, like so much worse. I'm just down a pawn for no reason. He takes away all counterplay. And I'm like, maybe I can hold him just for enough for me to get some kind of attack going over here. And his play was extremely clean. And right here, I'm already in wicked time trouble. And I'm like, I just played a move because everything I looked at was bad. So when you keep losing gobs of time, you got to make a move. Then after bishop takes h3, I'm like, oh yeah, if rook takes, rook g1. So I just resign. So you can understand why I'm like, that was just a stupid game. I mean, he didn't have to do anything. Didn't have to try. That was just like, it wasn't he played good. That was a I played bad thing. No disrespect to my opponent whatsoever. But those are the two games there. We'll finish it up with the W. For me. That's right. It's the only good one. So, you know, I got, yeah. Yeah, against an 1800 FIDE that just happens to have a 2300 USCF rating.